All right, guys, welcome to the Guardians Insider podcast. We are here to discuss episode 2, Rescue Party. And today, I guess I'm your wonderful host, Chason Laing. I'm the showrunner creator, and I've got some awesome, amazing guests with us for today's episode 2 podcast. So in no particular order, just as it is on my screen. First, I just want to welcome to the show, Joe Rojas. How are you, dude? Oh, you gotta talk. Nobody can see your thumbs up. He's getting ready. We can't hear you, buddy. All right, we're gonna let Joe figure this out. Joe is also known as Chato.
Here we go.
There he is. All right, Chato, also aka Joe Rojas, also in the show going as Chivo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great. This is just so much fun. I'm already enjoying this. Technical difficulties at all.
Part of his character. That's how he got prepared for character. He just muted everything. It was all silent film.
Yes. And speaking of that voice right there, I'll introduce you. Mr. Willie Mellina is here in the house. Thanks for coming out and doing this thing.
Thank you for having me. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, Willie, you play a very scary character in Maul, and so we're going to definitely talk about that. And then next on my screen here is the wonderful Sheran Keyton. How are you, Sheran? She is the AD on our show.
I'm doing great, Chason. I'm glad to be here. Glad to see everybody again. It's been a half of a year, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. I can't wait to hear some of your views as a non-cast person in this show. We had to have you represent. We'll get Charles on another one, and he's a producer. We'll get him talking too. And speaking of producer, also Chato over here, Mr. Joe Rose, you're also a producer on the show. So you're in it and a producer. So you're like, double the work.
That means I'm doubly excited.
Awesome. And our last guest of the day, we're going to come down here to the wonderful Alethea Santizo. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you. The weather outside's finally gotten to where I can't store my ice cream in the cupboard anymore. So it was a gorgeous day outside. I'm full of spring energy, even though spring hasn't happened yet. So I'm really happy to be here.
Fantastic. Glad to have you. And of course you play Amy in the show. And so we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. So now that you're all introduced, I kind of want to just dive in there. We got a lot to talk about. The show just dropped. People have already watched it. And I really kind of want to jump right in the beginning of episode 2. We've got this awesome kind of flashback opening scene that happens. I call it a farmhouse scene. That's what we call it there. And it's if we're going back to production, this was the first night that we actually got to film with Willie. And so Willie, you showed up, and this was like our first, you're up to bat, let's go. And I was just curious if you want to just talk for a minute about that experience coming in, and just that was the first moments that you played the character. So tell me about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Man, first of all, that was Joe hooked us up with that location, and it was phenomenal. So my first impression was like, wow, this is a great location. Pumped to be here. Obviously, you guys had already been jamming for a little bit. So I kind of know what that's like when you step in, when the game's already started. There's not a lot of time for, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. So I didn't really get to meet, sound and anybody who's just, helping, whether it's folks that are acting in it or whatever. So anybody that's working is working, and we can't waste time. So that was an interesting dynamic. And then to jump right in, I had my prep, my process, and then I immediately start and Chason just, man, you were gracious and intentional with, hey, you know what, Willie, I'm going to stop you right there. And you came over and you just said, in more ways than one, you just said, simplify. And I love that because I understand that language. My mentor trained me in that. And that was kind of my intent, but I don't know what it was. I just got swooped up in the energy of the deal. And there's about 9 people in the dark in the living room that I can't see, that I haven't met. And then you said that, and I thought, man, that was humbling, but it was exactly what I needed. And man, from that point forward, I felt like we were really on the same page. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, that location actually really helped with the feel, like the ambiance in the backyard and the lake and that silo that's already there on location. It just really matched up with the tone of what I felt like you wanted.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic thing. And just to talk about that location for a second, like, you know, for the audience, because they're obviously thinking about the millions of dollars that we had to just throw around and buy locations, right? But no, this is actually all your property there, Joe. Like, that is all a real location where your family really lives. And we met your mother and your kids that day, and it was we invaded like I don't even know what, but we just took over that whole day. And your family was amazing, by the way. They would totally were cool with it.
We had a great time. You know, what's funny is that we've been watching the show here at the house. My mother-in-law's here, so that's extra brownie points. She's like, "Hey, I see you on the television." So that's really cool, right? But as far as the location, what's funny is that our little boys, we have, you know, little ones, 6, 5, and 2. But the 6-year-old and the 5-year-old, they were watching the scenes of everything going down in the kitchen, and, you know, Willie beating up down in the field. They said, "This is when we were upstairs and we had to stay quiet, remember?" Yeah, so remember. So it was cool. It was great having everybody here. Really, really great to see so many talented people working here. And then what's great is that now it's like an official national landmark because of all these great performers that did their stuff here. It's forever the place
when the mob starts showing up on your front lawn there and taking pictures and stuff, you may regret this, but
it's forever the place where Willie first sent the chills up our spines.
Yeah. Well, and to get back to Willie's performance there, you know, it was kind of a crazy thing because we had been filming all day, and then you showed up kind of right in the middle of a transition, and then you're in there, and yeah, I mean, we had to make some serious executive calls there too, because again, with all of our millions of Hollywood dollars, you know, we had this wardrobe for you, and it was going to be like this. Remember that? We had this big black kind of scary looking weird jacket. We had a couple of them, and you were going to wear that, and it was going to be this dark figure. But we had to deal with the fact that it's July in Texas, and like 100, like it was a heat wave. It was like 110. It was nasty. And there was just, we talked right then, and we both realized like, there's no way we're going to do all these action sequences later on with you in this coat. It's just never going to happen. So we had to get rid of that, which that was a fun conversation. But then also, yeah, like your performance, I don't even remember quite what you did, but I just remembered it was almost too big on the camera. But then I knew we had hit something good when you did simplify. It was just like, be calmer, be still. You're not in a rush. You're not in a hurry. You're not trying to win anybody's approval as this character. And when you come in the doors that open up there, the little, the pantry, whatever that was, the doors from the outside, and then the doors shut, and you're just silhouetted there. I was watching on the camera, and I was like, yep, there we go. We're in, this will work. So yeah. I really think you got real scary real fast, man.
Yeah. It was that scene was written in a way that, you know, I saw that it could go one way, and I think all of a sudden I just got kind of carried with the waves and let it go. And but I'm glad that happened, because, you know, so like if I'm here at my house and I'm auditioning, I like to have one for fun, you know, and just get it out. And I was like an opportunity to do that. And then once I felt that, like those little sweeping little doors, you know, that you have in the older kitchens, that was a nice little get to come in through that and work with Tim, who I thought did a phenomenal job.
Oh yeah.
And the way that it was lit, man, it was already right there, ready to go. I kind of had a little ET feel in that kitchen.
Yeah. Well, it was a little bit of like almost like a theater performance, you know, because that's something you would see on a theater, is the doors opening up and someone enters and shuts the door. And
right.
Yeah, it was really really fun way to kind of get the ball rolling down that path and seeing what this character was going to do and where to take him. So
and if I can jump in here, really,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, no, I was just gonna say, really, in that stillness is actually what I felt, you know, made Maul all the more scarier. Right? He was just so still in what he was doing, and it just seems so intentional in every single movement that he made, and just so calculating that to me, I mean, that made him a whole lot more scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is also for you, Willie. It's your hour, Willie. everything that they both just said, but I have a question for you, for any actors that are watching. Professional actors spend a lot of time dissecting their script and really trying to develop a character, and they come in with all of these intentions. They know exactly in each moment what they're going to do, but it's usually very external. It's usually very external. So for Chason to give you a note like simplify, in one of the times that I was there when he was giving you a note was like internalize it more. What is the process as an actor for taking all of that in and being able to internalize it and then still have it read as powerful on camera as it did?
I think the biggest thing for me, and this is just my opinion, is everything kind of is controlled off the breath, and internally and externally. It's going to read externally, but as far as, you know, who this person is, I just think the breath, because that's going to drive your rhythm. That's going to drive the intensity. And we're going to feel that, and the audience feels that. I mean, if I sit here right now, even with a bad camera, you know, and I hold my breath, it'll start to read, right? Obviously, like in my eyes and everything. But if it's nice and cool and I'm breathing, then, you know, we feel that, and we almost can start to assume the pacing and the rhythm of how it's going to go. And then when you tweak that and play with that, it can really kind of, it can have an impact. It can have an influence on the audience as well as your scene partner as well, you know, and then obviously drive my performance in a positive or negative way. And I think what Joe kind of was saying, you know, I really found that with the breath. And I went in with the idea that I was going to keep this, you know, I even joked with Chason. I was like, man, this is almost like Clint Eastwood, but a bad dude. And that's how it read to me. And that was the preparation that I did. And then I just kind of went to some dark spaces with my own life. You know, I made a lot of mistakes, and I can snap, you know, and unfortunately it's on the people that we love the most and we care about the most. So I was trying to pull from some of that and kind of filter that out in a healthy way, whether it listen to music in a certain way or things that have got me to those points. And so that was interesting. But yeah, to answer your question, for me, I think a lot of it's breath. And my mentor, Jerry Mack, who the majority of all my training that I remember was from him. I remember actors sitting there saying, "Oh, you do this, and I do this," and he'd say, "Shut up, you know, just hit your mark, say line, and get off screen. Hit your mark, say line, and get off stage." Say the words. You know, if the words are there, and I believe that Chason, you know, a lot of the scenes are just like, man, it's there. You know, and then I don't need to do too much. And so once I was able to trust that and believe that and do that, I feel like those are some of the best moments for spending in episode 2. Hopefully the audience agrees. And if they don't, well, then they can keep their mouths shut.
Oh, I
was going to say, if they don't, they're blind, because you were brilliant. I referred to you as the quiet storm when I first saw you on set. I was like, this dude, like it was great.
Yeah, I really wanted you to feel like you were somebody who has a fear or anxiety will be fidgety and move and stammer and do all these different things that they do. But a person who is completely comfortable and controlled of their situation, they have no reason to do anything unless they want to. And that's what I wanted from the character, is like, if he moves, if there's a reason, if he talks, there's a reason. Everything has a reason, and he's just not, I just like that about it. And yeah, the character just reads that way. And that opening scene was really critical because, one, it's a flashback, that we now seen it's a flashback. And it introduces a lot of questions like, why don't you look any different in the flashback than you did in the previous episode? So we can't really give super much about that away just yet, but we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it was a really fun way to start. That was probably one of the most stressful days of shooting for sure, but it paid off. It turned out all good. So,
well, I mean, if it was one of the most, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask one more quick question. A lot of the entire series has relation to the Latin community or the Hispanic community. Is there any intention with naming Mal, Willie's character Mal, which is Spanish for bad? Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, so I wanted a character that had a very simple name. I didn't want it to be long like Voldemort. Like that's been done. I just wanted something that was simple, that you would say it and it would just carry some weight. And yeah, I always like to look for words that have either, Latin roots or things like that for certain characters anyway. And so when you hear Maul, it's like malignant, it's just bad. It just sounds like something like, who would name your kid Maul, right? And so I also wanted a name that felt a little more timeless. I wanted something that could feel like we don't know really anything about his origin. And so I wanted that to just feel. So, I mean, with as much as you can with a name, I named that character probably 6-7 times in my original pitch deck. When I was talking to PureFlix about the show, the villain, I didn't even have the name yet. I just called you a vagrant. So I was just like, the name will have to come. The name will have to come later. But I just wanted somebody that just had a sense of malice, and so on. So anyway, you just take it and run. But I like to there's so much we got to talk about. And so I'm gonna keep plowing us forward, guys, because there's just so much. But Sheran, this one's kind of coming to you. This episode, episode 2 has what I call was like the big giant storming the castle sequence. Like it was a mega sequence where the guys go in to take over this building. There's all these stunts that happen through the building. And we were there. We ended up, I originally thought we maybe could do this in 2 days. And we ended up, it took us, I think we were at that building in all, I think we filmed 6 different days at that building. So it just goes to show you action sequences take time. But I just thought it's a great, it kind of flows together. It definitely feels, good when I'm watching, and I think people really get into it. But for someone that was there for all those days, struggling through the heat of that building and putting together these action sequences, I was curious, like what was your experience being the AD for something like that, for like these kind of sequences and maintaining the set and all the things that you did?
Exciting is the first word that comes to mind. Hot is definitely the second adjective that comes to mind. But really, it was like strap on your seatbelt and hang on and enjoy the ride. Some of them we were filming out of sequence. A lot of it we were filming out of sequence. So It was about me literally trying to just run around behind you and keep up with you.
Well, you did amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. And just make sure that we didn't miss anything so that your job was made that much easier when, in the editing bay. But it was very exciting to watch. For as many years as I've been doing this professionally, there are some things that I didn't know, and I'm not going to give away any movie secrets, but I'll just say that I've been watching people break beer bottles in bar fights for years and thought, oh no, that's dangerous. Somebody's going to get hurt. And now after being in our own with, a bottle, I was like, what? This is great. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with you. The way you move is just poetic. Like, really, it is. It's fast. It's intentional. You come in knowing exactly what you're going to get, and then you get it. There's no second guessing. We didn't have to go back and do a bunch of things over and over again. So I appreciate all of that with that sequence. And I'm sure that the people who were fighting appreciated that as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you brought such a for shooting sequences like that with the speed that we were doing it, because even though it ended up being 6 days, that was a tremendous amount of work we did at that building so fast.
Yeah.
And there was so many details and cuts and tricky elements that I felt like precision had to be, like, we had to be on. There's no extra shots. There is no extra time for anything. And to get that many hundreds of shots for all that was crazy. And I was just so excited that you were able to keep track and like you were on it. You kept the beat. Like my brain left me, like about 2 hours into this thing. And so you were able to keep it all there together and we plowed through it. And I was really, this was our first show together and now you're going to be stuck with me forever. But,
I love it. I love it.
But as our first show together, I was really concerned at the beginning. I was like, man, we are just tossing this poor woman to the dogs. Like she is not going to know what hit her with all this madness. And you just were so professional. Everyone was like, talking about it. Like you kept everybody light and happy. And I was like, how is everybody happy? You're not feeling how hot this is right now. So it was crazy, but yeah, you were on fire and kept it all together. And so, but yeah, I mean, just that was something I'm proud to have gone with myself, to have gone through that. But then also having you there, it definitely would not have happened had you not been like as on it as you were, for sure.
I appreciate it. My moment of transparency is that I didn't know exactly what the process was going to be like or what I was walking into. So if anyone ever gets to see like behind the scenes pics from the first couple of days, I had this little pop-up black stool and I was sitting there with my little clipboard. And the next thing I know, we were moving again. And I was like, grab my stool. And it was like, after a while, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to sit down. I'm just going to run around behind Chason. We got this. And so between that and just kind of making sure that everyone stayed hydrated and, like you said, happy. I think with any industry at all, you can deprive people of money. You can deprive people of, and I use deprive because that's the only word that's coming to my head right now. You can deprive people of money. You can deprive people of a lot of things. But if you keep the joy in a moment, you feed them, you give them good food, something great to drink, and just a good hug and a, hey, how's it going? Humans in general don't require much more than that. So I was very excited to bring that, if nothing else, to the table.
Yeah, well, you definitely did. And I've been on many more commercial level shoots where people come in with their egos and like they want everything a certain way and the temperatures, air conditioner set. And it's it's almost like hostile where people it's not necessarily fun to work there. And I was really concerned coming out of, some of those things into this, where we're going to be extremely fast and how we're going to do this. And yet I was so excited to see how much everybody just wanted to be there. And I was just so stressed. And finally, I can't remember if it was you or Charles or Chris Clinton. I can't remember. Somebody came up to me and it's like, dude, it's cool. We all want to be here. We all want to make this thing great. So just relax.
It may have been a combination of the three, because I know I personally said that to you a couple of times.
Yeah. And it did. It made a huge difference because, it kind of made me realize like, yeah, nobody's here because they just, they're just being that way. Like everybody really was excited and it turned out really great. It's a great memory now, the production of that whole thing and how the crazy way we did it. But let's, to move on, I got a, handful of things. Another thing, we meet, Chivo in this episode, like he's not there in episode 1. And suddenly, Chato appears, here you are playing Chivo in this character at the end of the big action scene. We meet you. And, again, I've worked with you before, on several other things. So I kind of know what to expect and you're a great actor. However, I'm going to say this, dude, you surprised me so much with kind of where you went with this. I barely had to do anything to direct you. You were just on it. And I kind of want to encompass all this and I'm going to toss it your way, Joe, but, the range that you were able to do in this between when we first meet you is almost like comedy. And then there's like sincerity when you're in the truck talking to the guys about what's going on and who you are. And then when we get to the bathroom sequence with your wife, like, I was filming and I was completely blown away. Like I was just completely into that. I couldn't believe how amazing that performance was and how quickly you were able to go from I'm just a dude, I'm just standing here to that moment was just crazy. So I thought it'd be a great time to just hear, tell me about your experience doing this character coming in on this show and kind of what you were thinking about it and just, your 10 cents. And then obviously I'd like to know your secret for, how did you do that? Where you just went, boom, I'm here. And now I'm in this extremely intense moment.
onions. Put onions in your pocket. No, just no. Listen, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Chason. Like you said, I mean, we've worked with each other a few times already, and as a matter of fact, you're the first person to ever put me on camera. That's
Rock on. I'll take that.
Yeah. So thank you for that. But as far as Chivo, it was certainly fun to play because for the most part, the characters that I've played are more the villain. You know, Pablo Escobar, more than the mean guy and things like that. And to be able to go out there and play something or someone who's just in a really vulnerable place was liberating, I guess. If I could pick one word, I would say liberating, because I've just really been anxious to really be able to play a part like that, you know, instead of, because like I said, it's been either, you know, the mean guy or, you know, just extremely goofy on one spectrum or the other. And so just to be able to play this type of character was fun. And then you know, taking Chivo, he's a nice guy. You know, he kind of got wrapped up in working for some bad people. You know, he was young and ambitious, and then, you know, never expected himself to become a family man. And moreover than that, you know, finding God. You know, and that to me was also very real. Now, I've never obviously worked for the mafia or anything like that, but I can say that I've been through a lot, right? Gone through a lot of things, and I can tell you that ever since I've genuinely started walking with God and you know, have invited Christ into my heart, things have been enormously different. I mean, without going too dorky, I mean, even like my marriage is just so much more solid on so many different levels, you know, because we find our happiness and our joy in each other and in what God is, you know, given us as, you know, treasures with each other, right? And then taking that to Chivo in the bathroom, it wasn't that difficult to just kind of take that moment of, you know, and God forbid, right? But what if I were losing my wife in for real life, you know, and that you're just talking about it now, you know, gulp, but, you know, it wasn't that far of a stretch. And then, you know, you and I are also friends in the real world, Chason, and, you know, a few years ago, our teenage boy, he passed away. It was sudden, you know, unexpected. He went to bed one night and just didn't wake up the next day, right? And so certainly that was an enormous journey as a human being, right? And also an enormous journey as a believer. And that's really helped shape not only who I am as a person, but I think it's also helped shape who I am as an actor. Because look, man, when our son passed away, it was enormously painful, right? It still is, right? And when that happens, you're incredibly vulnerable and exposed to everyone, you know, and there isn't anywhere you can turn or go to hide from anyone, you know, except for strangers that don't know what happened, right? There isn't anywhere you can go to hide. And so being put in that situation and finding myself surrounded by friends and loved ones that loved me even in that vulnerability, if that makes any sense, it kind of gave me that permission to be that vulnerable forever in my regular life, but also in my work. And just, you know, who's ever died from exposing their vulnerabilities?
Yeah.
On camera.
Well, I remember you know, when that went down with your son, you know, I remember those moments. Now I've had conversations with you, and, you know, writing this part, I definitely knew this was going to hit at some of those heartstrings because, you know, that was going to be, you know, on top of your mind. That being said, I've still never, you know, out of all the things that I've shot in my career, I've never seen anyone turn it on and be just there. Like I could see it in every part of your face and eyes, like you were there. And Marisol also, you know, playing your wife. just phenomenal, just unbelievable. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is a powerful performance. But also this character is a very, yeah. I mean, I've seen you have played Pablo Escobar, and you've played other, many other things. And I loved the fact that this one, I just wanted you to play something that had a little bit of like a, some fun, not in an overly comedic way, but just you're a normal character. You're not a bad guy. You're trying to work your way through this. And yeah, I'm really glad that worked out, because your performance is great. We're going to see, more, but we're going to, for now, for episode 2, that's kind of all we can really jump in. But yeah, epic.
Well, the writing. No, yeah, thank you, man. And the writing, I mean, certainly you wrote it fantastically real. And even, when Chivo was confronted with, you say God doesn't make any mistakes, didn't your wife die? Right. And so that was, I'm not giving anything away, right? We've already seen
that's
it.
episode 2. You're good.
Okay, good. So, and in that, what I can tell you is that whenever Chris hit me with that line, let me tell you, I've heard that before. Where I've gone to maybe witness or gone to say to someone, even now God is good, right? Or hey, well, you just gotta trust God, and God doesn't make any mistakes. And then I've had people turn and say, didn't your kid just die in a sleep, and you're still gonna call God good? Yeah, because
I think that is a mystery to most people, and that's why, for me, that's the powerful thing. That in itself is the power of the thing.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of great moments in the show with Faith, but I don't know. I think that might have been one of the greatest. Coming from your character, getting to hear this, that you were gonna stick with God. I mean, you stole the show in that scene, because that's the core of the message, right? Is like, whose side are you on in the end?
Yeah, right. No, you're right. And all the credit to the dude who sat there and wrote it, right, Chato?
Well, we'll take some of that credit, but again, the words are only so much. It's not until you put flesh on it that they actually become a thing. So,
but you know what, Chason, and I'll just say this, and,
sure.
and I'll be quiet. But I think that maybe just from watching the show and seeing everyone's performance, I don't think I'm the only one who brings their real life onto the show.
Oh, I would hope that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think just watching all of the other actors on here, it's just so believable, and people are, bringing their real life experiences to the screen, and perhaps even their real life testimonies to the screen, and that makes it all the more powerful. Again, this is what we're doing, we're witnessing, right? So how neat that life is imitating art.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not going to sidetrack myself too much with this, but I will say it was kind of an interesting. The reason why I like this show and the characters so much is because they all are dealing with things that I think people can recognize within themselves in various ways, and those struggles are very real to people. They're just honest. It's not like, oh, we've got Superman over here doing whatever. Like, everybody in the show is dealing with very primal, real, normal struggles and things that you're going to deal with in your life, and watching them how they unfold, that is kind of the fun for me. And of course, all you actors kind of put yourselves into it, and so that's pretty awesome. But I want to move on because we're going to run out of time. Alethea, I kind of want to talk to you for a minute, if that's okay. But I do want to do a little bit, if we could, what's the word, like, back up just the tiniest bit. Because we're introducing your character in episode 1, and obviously we didn't get to kind of hear your point of view. And then episode 2, has you in there as well. And I'm curious just how did you come onto this particular role? And you're playing kind of a love interest type character that we don't know a whole lot about just yet. And I'm just curious on your take on, your introduction into the show, and then how that went, because we've seen you in a handful of scenes now, and I'm just curious about that.
Well, okay. I am a superhero fan. I'm a superhero geek. I'm a superhero nerd. I've got Captain America stuff on this wall. I've got Batman on the other. I love superheroes. So getting to film in a show like this where you've got, I mean, they don't wear costumes. These are superheroes. I was like, yes. And then Faith, I mean, it's just like amazing. So getting to play a love interest, I remember when you first emailed me, you said it was like an MJ to a Spider-Man almost type of thing. I was like, yes, I can do that. I love that because I love superheroes and I love people who go the extra mile and work extra hard and sacrifice things for God and for others so that they don't have to. So when I was given a chance to play a girl who was pulling the superhero away from his superhero life, I was like, I need to be worth it. That was the main purpose. That was my main goal in the entire time playing Amy. And I tried so hard to bring that across because I wanted to be interesting enough and have enough personality to me and be somebody that you could look at and say, wow, you're wonderful. And actually believe, even if only for a second, that Jack could find that person intriguing enough that he would let it sidetrack him from his God-given mission. That was so important to me because if you can't buy that I was that kind of girl, then it makes Jack look horrible. And I couldn't do that. I love the character.
Yeah, no, I think you did a fantastic job with that. And I really wanted that to be the case. I wanted you to be different than maybe what I've seen in many other movies. I think there's a way to write women love interest characters in the kind of easy, you've seen it 1,000 times sort of way. And I wanted it to kind of go the opposite way where your character is more intriguing to Jack than anything else. Like he's seen a lot of things. He's busy. He's got a lot going on, but there's something about you that just kind of stops him in his tracks a little bit where there's something about you that kind of is making him curious. And I just wanted to see that play out. And I think it does. I definitely did in the first episode when, he's kind of following you around and we don't really know by episode 2 kind of where it's going and all these little things. But you did do a great job with that. Like you kind of show like, well, where he's clearly attracted to you. We don't even have to understand all the reasons why just yet. But it plays very nicely. And so it was just fun to kind of get you on. And of course, working with you now, you find out like you actually are like a little action star yourself. And you do all these like martial arts and stunts and things like that. So that was a really cool thing in and of itself. So you were all on board and another behind the scenes, we went through probably 30, 40 real auditions for this character. And there was just so many. I was looking for one that would just like hit me. Like I wanted that same thing for me. I wanted to be curious. Like what is this girl going to do to this character? Like, that kind of thing. I don't want the obvious choice or the overselling it choice or making them overly like whatever. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I remember seeing your audition and then I watched it a second time. And then I called my wife and I'm like, come here, just watch this. Just, do you see this in this girl right here? And at the time I didn't even know your name yet. And so I was watch this. And so she watched it. She's like, yeah, she's interesting. Like, and that's what I was like, yes, like there's something to that. Like, that's what I'm looking for. I want somebody that's interesting enough that my attention would be drawn to this person if they were talking, because that's what's going to get Jack to be drawn over there. And so, yeah, it was really fun. And I think it's a different way. I'm not super versed in all of the faith rom-comness of the world as far as the movies go. But I wanted something a little different. And I think that you really delivered that. Awesome. So guys, we got one more thing to deal with. And if you have any questions, feel free to jump in there if you want to talk about any major things in the episode, because I kind of want to just talk about one more thing. At the end of this episode 2, we end there with Mr. Willie Mellina there in this cartel sequence where he kind of goes and interrupts the cartel, and it goes out with a bang, so to speak. And I was just curious, having seen it there, Sheran, and then also Willie playing in that scene, and then watching it finally now that you've seen it done, and it's all edited and stuff. How did you think that turned out? Was it kind of what you were expecting? And B, How do you think we did with that? Because the hardest thing about faith films is communicating violent sequences without being violent. And that's very tricky. So I'm just curious to get your take. So if you want to just jump in there, either one of you, I'd like to hear from both of you.
Sharon, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I couldn't tell from reading the script how you were going to cut that together. And I was obviously there when it was happening. So it was a surprise for me when I watched this episode, and it was really great. I think you did a great job of suspending the disbelief. You did
Hopefully
a great
disbelief.
job of making us believe that what we didn't see, it almost like it gave us the ability to create in our own mind. I'll just say what happened behind closed doors, right? And then, gosh, it's so hard to not give things away. And then the reveal, the moment of the big reveal, again, Willie was so brilliant. You knew that what you didn't see, but what you saw in your mind. This feels so convoluted. When ladies and gentlemen, you watched it, so you understand what's happening right now. But it's like Willie gave you this cool confirmation that what you imagine, whatever each person imagines in their mind happened, really did happen, right? And so there's the satisfaction that it keeps you engaged, because you like literally were in your mind imagining what just happened behind closed doors. And again, the big reveal was like, yeah, he did that. So I thought it was great. And again, I was there when it happened, and I was very much surprised.
Yeah, so I'll jump on in here. This is reading it. And to piggyback on what some folks have said about the writing, I remember when you sent it to me, it took me a day or two till I was able to do it. I was actually on set on a movie, and that sounds so. Forgive me for that. That sounds. I was busy at the time. I could have said anything. My bad.
Oh, you're a major movie star, man. It's all good.
I was tied up a little bit, and so then I got to read it, and I read it straight through. I just blew right through it, the whole thing. And that scene was one of those that I was like, obviously, because I knew I was playing Mal, but I thought that's fun. And so the writing was there. And then to go back to locations again, and I'm a nerd when it comes to locations, because in filmmaking, it's just a great location. You have that establishing shot in any movie. And you have that established shot, yes, and then we go into the world, and it matches, and you're just like, oh, this is nice. You can tell it's dirty, and we didn't have to do a lot of work to make that place have that feel. I mean, gosh, I literally used the restroom a few times, and I wish we would have had some scenes in the restrooms. The restrooms, I mean, it was almost like a little bit of a ghost town. So, anyways, I'll try to tie this in all together, but yeah, the writing was there already, and then you get there on the location, and then on the day when we're doing it, I'm hoping, like I can come to that door, I can say that little thing, I make that piece, and obviously I'm making them all angry, to put it as PG as possible. And on the day, I really wanted to kind of have that moment where I'm stepping up, and then boom, 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 and I get to kind of get that feel where I work these dudes. And I could tell that we weren't doing it pretty quickly. And I thought, oh, okay. I was not expecting it to have that much of what you wanted, what we want the audience to feel. And one of my favorite things on the day that you did, we were saying like, hey, we're going to try to get that where we can see that shot through that break in the sheetrock.
Yeah. And
I thought, man, and I loved, and this is me because, but you let me go with it. But I took those beats. It goes back to the breath. I took those beats as though I went pop, 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 breath, and then walk over and did it. And I just thought it read really well. And I thought the way that you cut it was awesome. I had one minor note. that's pretty egotistical on the when I saw it. But whenever it was all said and done, I was like, man, you created that you told that story exactly how it needed to be told. And I thought it was a really, really great scene in the episode and for the whole season for me.
Well, that one for me, it was very tricky because if we were Marvel Studios doing that scene, you would have had a whole fight sequence and thrown some people out some windows, and it would have been a whole giant epic thing, right? But then, of course, for our audience, we're trying to not just go overly violent or glorify violence, and
right.
So the hardest part for me, and this is why I think most Christian or faith films don't really have bad guys, is because how do you make them bad without showing anything?
Right.
And it's very tricky. And so I was kind of looking back at, movies like Jaws and so on, where, sometimes if you don't see, it can be more scary than if you see. And I thought if we can play this out where we don't have any idea, I want to make it look like you're about to get smoked, dude. And then we just see the aftermath of what happens. And then the audience can at least put it together. So like, what the heck just happened? What did he just do? Like, he clearly, how did they miss him? Did they miss him? Is he not hurt? And I thought leaving them with these kind of questions would be more fun and kind of almost make you more of a presence in your character than if we actually showed you, gut punching a few people. And then, of course, in the scouting, when we were talking about that building, because that Joe, you also had a connection to that building. And so he is the one who had turned us on to saying, hey, use this building. I found that sheetrock hole and I was like, that's what I'll do here, because that, the door's shutting and then the sheetrock that can do it all for you. And so, we didn't make that hole. That was already there. Some fortunate worker kicked that hole for us and we just took that and ran with it. So,
hey, Chason, I'd like to ask, and I know we're kind of running out of time, and you've been such a gracious host with asking all of us questions. We keep mentioning the power of the writing. Every person who has spoken has mentioned the writing. You're also the writer, obviously, of this entire series, specifically for episode 2. Can you just kind of get us into your mind with just the writing, from the action sequence to just everything? Like, can you give us the abridged version of what was going on in the mind of Chason Laing when you were writing this?
Well, so this is a very unique experience to write this, because I knew we had to do it in 5 episodes. And so I automatically start breaking it down in story structure for what we're going to do in the 5 episodes. And that's all really, boring stuff. But for the particular episodes, it's more about seeing how things are playing out. I wanted this is the first time we actually see the guys on a significant mission for the action sequences. And I wanted it to have the elements of time where they're having to hurry. And I just knew, get that clock going, put the stakes up there that they have to get out of here. And of course, don't ever give anybody what they want when you're writing anything, because if you do, the show's over, right? And so instead of finding the girl, they find Chivo. And then there's a lot more thugs in there they're planning, and just on it goes. But also just the levels of climbing the stairs, and seeing Jack just kind of run up like he's been running all day, and then Chris, Mill's character coming up and huffing puffing, and like there's reasons for all of that. And in the script, that's kind of all there, that's what's going on. And so I'm just writing it to capture the moments that we need to do, and also like where we are in the story. Like this would be like the fun and games time, where we're watching, we're seeing some stuff play out that we haven't seen yet. And the way that these guys have, they do their missions. But on all the rest of it, the writing on all the rest of it is really just about playing with what the characters need and what they want and how they come across. We need, every scene hopefully has a purpose behind, even the scene we just discussed where Maul comes in with the cartel soldiers. Everybody hears the cartel soldiers, and thanks to Netflix and Narcos and all these things, you think cartel and they're going to be bad, like everywhere you hear, they're going to be bad. And if a dude can walk in and wipe out some of their main dudes real quickly, he's worse, so it kind of establishes like, well, wait a minute, who is this guy coming in with no fear of them? Like, is he insane? It does something for you on that character to see like who he is and kind of building him up to another level. So, things like that, they have purpose. And then of course, for me, the Chivo character is a great character in the sense that he has conviction. He has found his conviction. He doesn't really change in this episode. Like he's doing this thing and he believes what he believes, and he's very confident in it. And he is juxtaposed with all the other guys who are not as, they might all believe in something, but they're all struggling with trying to figure out what's going on. Why is this not working? Why is this working differently? Am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing something else? And Chivo is the one guy that's kind of a constant. And so he kind of plays off and shows you the insecurities of everybody else. And also in this episode, Chivo, I need him to kind of bond a little bit with Mills. It's kind of showing us a little darker side to Mills and like what he's messing with. And we talked about it a little bit on the first podcast where you guys weren't here, where we were coming from the show Breakers, which we had done a while back that we're kind of rebranding. But Mills has a character there. And so this season of Guardians, there's a lot of play with his character here as well. So I just try to write scenes with characters that I find intriguing, and how can I make them do something to kind of get what their goal is in a unique way. If we can do that, I feel like that's entertaining television, and not the obvious way. Don't do the obvious thing and never give them what they want. So that's my 5 cents on the writing of this thing. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay.
No, it did. It did. It was great. It was
awesome. Great. Well, guys, yeah. Oh, go ahead. We got to wrap it up. Sure. One more question. Sure.
We'll just real fast. I'm sorry. Do you write from like beginning to end, or do you write from the end backwards?
Man, that's a good question. Yes and no to all of it. I know that there's a lot of people that say you have to always know your ending, and I kind of know my ending before I get there, but I don't lock it down so much to where I am completely bound to it, which Joe, we'll have to talk about this maybe on a bonus. I'll get you back to the bonus, because I don't want to talk about the end of this show and where we're going, but I do definitely, I break everything down, and writing an episode for TV or a series like this is different even in a feature film, because you have these clear breaks where people are going to be stuck for a week before they see the next episode. So you kind of have to plan all these things in there and change up your act. So I definitely start with kind of where I want to go, and I know kind of where I want to end also. And once I kind of have that down, then I feel like the rest is a lot of fun. Then it's just like, where are we in the story? Where's the timing? Is this the middle? Is this earlier? Is this, like almost near the end? Like, where are we? Because that kind of tells me the dynamics that need to be there. And then from that, it's just a matter of saying, what do these characters want? And how are you keeping them from getting these things along the way? And like, how are they getting closer to these things? And like, what are we doing? We need to always be moving everything forward, but we always need to take the story in unique ways. And I really am passionate about characters having arcs, like starting somewhere. If the story ends the same way they begin, if they haven't moved forward in time, then I feel like that's not realistic to people. I think people don't go like a day. I'm different now than I was this morning. If I can go through a whole adventure and be, the same at the end of it, then, what are we doing here? So yeah, I hope, is that good enough? A good answer?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I just thought you made back to front. Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And then, hopefully, this was episode 2. So next week, episode 3 on PureFlix, and we'll talk about it on the next episode. So thanks again, guys.